Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Hello everyone. Hello and welcome to the GSMC television podcast. We are part of the mighty GSMC podcast network. I am your humble host, Howard Fletcher. I hope all of you all are doing well in these very trying times. It's very strange. Hopefully I can keep you entertained and informed about all things television for the next hour or so. Today's show is going to be a little bit different, a little bit piecemeal. I like to have more substantive and cohesive segments. Some people would question that, but I try. But, you know, with so many shows being put on hold, so many things sort of in a stalled place, there's not much breaking news. But when there is breaking news, you can best be sure that I will let you know. So today I am going to start with the Olympics. The Summer Olympic Games in Tokyo will be postponed for a year until next year, 2021. Why do I keep saying Japan? I'm wanted by the Japan. Japan's Prime Minister Abe Shinzo announced on Tuesday of this week, which was the day of my last show came out. The postponement, like the coronavirus outbreak, is going to have a big impact on the TV industry. Comcast, which has the rights to show the games in the U.S., has been counting on hundreds of hours of coverage. You know, of swimming, of archery, of trampoline, of gymnastics, all kinds of stuff to lure viewers to its screens. In an era when many of them might opt for streaming movies or TV series or even going out. But there is a lot of competition right now for viewership on television. NBC Universal has already sold more than 90% of its ads for the games. And that inventory that it sold has added up to about $1.25 billion with a B dollars. The company's parent corporation, which is Comcast, agreed to pay $4.38 billion with a B for the U.S. media rights to 4 Olympic Games, and that's going to include Winter Olympics. They bought the games from 2014 to 2020. These games that are supposed to be coming up, and $7.75 billion for the broadcast rights to Olympic Games between 2021 and 2032. They love the Olympics. Discovery in 2015 agreed to pay approximately $1.44 billion for the rights to broadcast the 4 Olympic Games between 2018 and 2024 that are supposed to be in Europe. Postponement is also expected to hurt the Japanese economy, of course. They're not going to have as many people who are going to be coming there this year. In fact, people are going to be staying away because of the coronavirus. It's been estimated that canceling the event is going to put a dent in their overall economy of about $74 billion. So as you can see, this thing is, this unfortunate virus, this pandemic actually, is really affecting people, not only getting around, but financially. At the end of 2019, organizers estimated the total cost of the 2020 Olympic Games were going to be around $12.6 billion. Now, when they break that cost down, the cost is going to be shared. That means to put on the games, that is. Those other costs were for I was quoting were just advertising and broadcast rights. The cost of putting on the games is shared with the city of Tokyo, which is paying $5.69 billion, the Japanese Olympic Organizing Committee, which is paying $5.7 billion, and Japan's central government, which is paying $1.4 billion. What was a disaster for the Olympics might be a little ray of hope for the movie theaters, though, because, during the Olympic years, the Summer Olympic years especially, theaters hold off on releasing movies because they expect a certain percentage of people to stay away and be watching the games. So they weren't going to release as many movies this summer. Now, because of coronavirus, a lot of the releases have been held up or pushed back all the way to even some to next year. Well, now that there are going to be no Olympic Games and they've had to close theaters down this spring and, going into the summer, the end of the summer might be saved for the movie industry because of the lack of the Olympics if theaters are able to reopen by then. We shall see. I think it's still going to be a big boon for streaming services. They're already getting paid, and I think it's just going to continue to the end of 2020. Well, animated shows, whereas all these things are being held up, movies are being held up, series are being held up because production companies can't shoot because people can't get together, animated shows have put together a workaround. As much as the television industry remains on hold because of the production shutdown, animated series like The Simpsons are adapting and finding new creative ways to keep the show going. All of the animated shows produced by Disney, which is owned by 20th Century Fox, which Disney owns, those are cartoons. I call them cartoons. Those are animated shows that include The Simpsons, Family Guy, Bob's Burgers, and Duncanville. All very successful shows. They are using a program called Toon Boom in order to work on a shared storyboard. So in other words, they can do like a Zoom meeting storyboard without having to physically get together. Other shows, like Netflix's Big Mouth, recently completed virtual table reads, again, on a group internet meeting situation. At Family Guy, the show's composer, now this is pretty interesting, is attempting to do a remote score by having musicians play from home. Now, I know artists like to be more collaborative. People like to be more collaborative. I like to be more collaborative, even though I'm doing this solo podcast. However, I think this is something that was going to come into fruition, and a lot of these things. And this coronavirus situation has just accelerated it. As movies and entertainment ventures become more international, instead of having to try to coordinate a time for everyone to get together, I think if they can get the sound right, people are going to start doing more of this remote recording of not only voiceovers like they would do for The Simpsons or Bob's Burgers, but also for scores for not only television, but movies. Fox owns this animation house called Bento Box. Bento Box puts together shows like Bob's Burgers. They are having in-house animators use a program called Harmony to handle retakes and new animation with a tight turnaround. So these animators don't have to go to the studio or to wherever they went to collaboratively or on site do these edits or this new animation. They can just do it at home and do it remotely. Other series such as The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, again, Duncanville, and Netflix's Hoops and Apple's Central Park, they're still putting out episodes for their respective production companies and homes. They're among the rare scripted originals to still be producing and delivering new episodes, as hundreds of broadcast and cable and streaming shows have been shut down. So as we all know, why am I talking about this? Well, it does have to do with television, but it also has to do with the future of television. Because as we all know, money makes this world go around, and money is what drives these distribution and streaming services. They need to make money and they can't afford to shut down. And so while animated series, well, The Simpsons has been a cash cow for Fox. And, but as they find that they can create these shows with lower overhead and still get viewers, and something like a pandemic isn't going to shut them down, I think there's going to be a premium on animation. And we might see a lot more virtual shows. You know, you might see more shows that would be live action become something that's just generated CGI and animation. And, you know, and not meant to be cartoonish, you know, more along the lines of anime. So we'll see what happens. These are strange days indeed. Next, we're going to look at the shows that you can expect to see on the second half of April. Last show, we discussed some shows that are scheduled to premiere in the first 2 weeks of April. Some of these have gotten pushed back already, but they're still on the list. My name is Howard Fletcher. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Thanks a lot for listening.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. Keith keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Okay, no, I don't want that. God, give me some ice cream. We're back. Now, last show, I went over the shows that were scheduled to start in the beginning of April 1st through the 14th. And today I'm going to review what's scheduled to start, but things are changing every day. Things are getting canceled or pushed back, but these are the shows, some of the shows that are scheduled to either premiere or start their new season from April 15th to the end of the month. I'm going to start at Wednesday, April 15th. And the show we're going to start off with is Mrs. America. Excuse me. It's on FX Hulu. It's a 9-episode miniseries. And this is what it's about. Mrs. America tells the true story of the movement to ratify the Equal Rights Amendment and the unexpected backlash led by a conservative woman named Phyllis Schlafly, played by the one and only Kate Blanchett. Yes. She has a producer credit in this show. I've noticed that most of the time when they get these established movie types to be in these television miniseries, they usually come on as producers. Through the eyes, this is the rest of the synopsis. It's shown through the eyes of the women of that era, both Schlafly and second-wave feminists like Gloria Steinem, Betty Friedan, Shirley Chisholm, Bella Abzug, and Jill Ruckelshaus. The series explores how one of the toughest battlegrounds in the culture wars of the 1970s gave rise to the moral majority and forever shifted our political landscape. One might say it kind of is an origin story of where we are now. What We Do in the Shadows is an FX series. It's the second season of the series. It was created by Jermaine Clement of the Flight of the Conchords fame. It's also adapted from a movie of the same name. If you all saw it, most people thought it was pretty funny. It follows a group of vampires on Staten Island who have been housemates for hundreds of years. Friday, April 17th, you got a new show called Home, not Holmes, but Home, on Apple TV. It's a new docuseries. It's about, what it says is that Home guides the audience inside the world's most extraordinary homes and unveils the boundary-pushing imagination of the visionaries who dared to dream and build them. So I guess it's a show where they're going to show off ridiculous houses. Let's see, Sunday, April 19th, Fargo was supposed to premiere. That was season 4. It's been delayed indefinitely. And like I've said before on this show, season 4 stars Chris Rock. He plays the head of a crime syndicate made up of black migrants fleeing the Jim Crow South, who have a contentious relationship with the Kansas City Mafia, and it's set in 1950 Kansas City, Missouri. So it'd be interesting to see how this ties into the other shows. There's usually some type of thread that ties all of the seasons together. It'll be interesting to see what that is in this show. Now, I got a little pushback on this show when I talked about Fargo, because I talked about Chris Rock's acting ability and how I had little faith that he was going to be able to pull this off, or at least I didn't think he was going to be, up for an Emmy. They were, it came up because the show is starting late. It's going to take him out of Emmy contention. I didn't think that was something he needed to worry himself about. I did see New Jack City. Now, granted, he's a lot older now, and he has some classic movies out there, but they're all comedies, like Pootie Tang and Osmosis Jones. And, what else did he? Well, he was in Dolomite. He was in the Eddie Murphy movie. I'm trying to find this list here. And I did see his documentary, Good Hair. And he did all right in Death and the Funeral and some other things. I thought that was a movie that didn't necessarily need to be made. But anyway, it was okay. Top 5, very good. But Fargo's a little bit different. I know it can be comedic, but you got to have some real acting chops. We will see. I will be the first one to praise Chris Rock to the high heavens on this show if he turns in a good performance. If we ever see it, we're waiting, Fargo. We're waiting, FX. Please put Fargo on. Friday, April 24th, Defending Jacob. That's an Apple TV movie, a new Apple TV miniseries. Defending Jacob tells the story of a father dealing with the accusation that his son is a 14-year-old murderer. There you go. Now that's the type of show that I can see why it got greenlit. It's an interesting premise. Although, there are a lot of 14-year-olds that are pulling off these types of, it won't be the first 14-year-old to pull off murder. But I can understand where a father would have a problem dealing with that fact. Afterlife. Well, that's a Netflix series. It's a new one starring Ricky Gervais. And this is what it's about. Afterlife follows Tony, that's Ricky Gervais, whose life is turned upside down after his wife dies from breast cancer. He contemplates suicide, but instead he decides to live long enough to punish the world for his wife's death by saying and doing whatever he wants. This is Ricky Gervais's life anyway. Although he thinks of this as his superpower, his plan is undermined when everyone around him tries to make him a better person. This is Ricky Gervais's life. He goes around and says whatever the hell he wants to anyway. And I'm sure a lot of people try to make him a better person. And I guess what happens in real life is that he decides to, hey, I could make a sitcom out of this or a miniseries, and I'll sell it to Netflix and make a lot of money, and that will make me a better person. Score. Sunday, April 26th. Killing Eve starts on BBC America. Killing Eve is a show that I just started to watch off of the recommendation of my friend Valerie, who was on the show back when we had that great conversation, terrible recording of our phone call when we talked about The Outsider. And the first 2 seasons, I caught up on it because it's on Hulu. And now my girlfriend and I, Joan, are watching it. And the season starts in about a month. Season 3, it stars Sandra Oh and Jodie Comer. Phoebe Waller-Bridge of Fleabag fame is the creator. And if you don't watch the show, this is what it's about. Bored with her protection guard role within British intelligence,
greetings,
Eve Polastri is overly interested with assassins, particularly female assassins, their psychologies and methods of killing. After brassly investigating behind the scenes in relation to a witness she is handling, she is fired from MI5.
Greetings.
But to her delight, is recruited by a secret division within MI6,
Greetings.
Chasing an international assassin who calls herself Villanelle. Eve crosses paths with her and discovers that members within both their secret circles may be more connected than she is comfortable with, but forms an attraction and obsession for Villanelle. that is more enthusiastically reciprocated. Both women begin to focus less on their initial missions in order to desperately seek more about the other. In other words, they both get obsessed with each other, and there's the show. It's a good show. I like it. I'm not as riveted as some of my friends, but I would definitely recommend it to anybody to go look at because it won't be a waste of your life. And those are the only shows that I saw on my list that I thought were worth watching or at least mentioning for the last 2 weeks of April. Let me know if you have some others. Please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com or tweet me or tweet at me at FletchDC. And let me know if there's a show I missed or a show that you'd like to recommend. I'm happy to mention it on the air. And if you'd like to write me an email about it or explain it, or even better, contact me and I'll call you up and we can record a segment on it. I'll do that too. Anyway, next I'm going to talk about Netflix, because Netflix has seemingly gone renewal happy. They have decided to renew a lot of shows. And I think it's because, well, not only because the shows might be worth renewing, but because of the situation as of late. I think they're going to have a lot of subscribers. And as I've always said on the show, if you want to keep your subscribers, you better have some good content and a lot of it. This is the GSMC Television Podcast. I'm Howard Fletcher. We'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
No, I don't want that. All right, we're back. And let's talk about Netflix and some of these shows that are on Netflix right now. Netflix just decided to renew a group of, I guess they're reality game shows. The streamer has handed out a whole bunch of renewals. They call them alternative series, namely 2 more seasons of Love is Blind and The Circle. They got 2 seasons, an extension, so to speak, each. And you get 1 more season of Rhythm and Flow and another of Marie Kondo. She has a new series entitled Sparkling Joy. Now, as listeners of this podcast know, and I hope those of you who are listening come back, you will hear me say many times about or mention shows that I do not watch, but I cover them because they're very popular and you probably watch them, or most of you probably watch them for them to be so highly rated. Love is Blind is definitely one of those shows. Now, The Circle, that's new to me too. Even though I'm a big Netflix watcher, I don't watch like the game shows or the reality shows on there. The first season of Love is Blind, it like took the internet by storm, with viewers left in disbelief that people could actually marry somebody after 10 days of dating in separate pods. For those of you who are like me, who don't watch Love is Blind or The Circle, I'm going to read the synopsis that are that I found on Wikipedia to hear these rules of this game, because those I can see why people would watch it. To me, I think it's not for me, but let me just get to it. You'll see what I'm talking about. Here is what Wikipedia says, how you play Love is Blind. The series follows 30 men and women hoping to find love. For 10 days, in a speed dating format, the men and women date each other in different pods, where they can talk to each other but not see each other. Whenever they decide, the men were able to propose to the women that they want to get married to. After the proposal and meeting face-to-face for the first time, the engaged couples headed to a couples retreat in Playa del Carmen, Mexico. During this trip, they get to spend time knowing their partners, and they're able to meet the other couples that are participating in the experiment. So I guess, there's some intrigue there because I'm sure there's some cross-attraction. Following the couples retreat, the engaged couples moved to the same apartment complex back in Atlanta. Now, while at the apartments, they all meet the parents of the person that they've decided to hook up with. And they also get to look at their partner's living conditions, the way they live, how you living. At the altar on the day of the wedding, they make their final decisions about whether to split up or get married, answering the question, is love blind? Now, all of that is crazy, but then this thing is hosted by Vanessa and Nick Lachey. So it's so outrageous that I guess it's, the people I know who watch it are like, some of them are almost embarrassed that they watch it, but they're just hooked because it's so crazy. So they binge it. That's another reason why they're like, I'm not going to go to it because it's like the person, who has become a crackhead. You don't want to necessarily try the crack. You just hope they can get off it one day. Season 2 is currently underway. It's filming in Chicago. I guess the first season was in Atlanta, and they're casting season 3 now. The other dating show that Netflix has renewed is called The Circle. Now this, I'm going to have to read you this because it's, and I hope this is confusing for me and I'm reading it. I guess you have to watch it, but let me give it a go. The contestants or players move into the same apartment building. However, the contestants do not meet face to face during the course of the competition. Sounds a lot like Love is Blind, as they each live in their own individual apartment. They communicate solely using their profiles on a specially designed social media app that gives them the ability to portray themselves in any way they choose. Players can thus opt to present themselves as completely different personalities than they are, a tactic otherwise known as catfishing. For example, one male player in the first season presented himself as a female identity.
Yes.
Why you would do that, I don't know. While another female contestant used photos of a woman she felt was more attractive.
It's him.
I've had somebody do that to me.
So sexy.
That's
yes,
a story
sir.
for another podcast.
I do anything.
Throughout
for
the
him.
series, the contestants rate one another from first to last place. At the end of the ratings, their average ratings are revealed to one another from lowest to highest. Normally, the 2 highest rated players become influencers, while the remaining players will be at risk of being blocked by the influencers. Now, what that means, I have no idea. However, occasionally there may be a twist to the blocking process. I don't even understand the blocking process, so I don't see how you can twist it up. Varying from the lowest rating players being instantly blocked, the identity of the influencers being a secret, or multiple players being blocked at one time. Blocked players are eliminated from the game, but are given the opportunity to meet one player still in the game in person. Then the day after a blocking, a video message is shown to the remaining players to reveal if they were real or fake. Okay, that's The Circle. That is whack, but people are on it like crack. Like I said, it's a show that I'm not going to watch because I'm scared of it. But if you all watch it, please email me at Podcast Howard if you can rip your eyes off of the set so you can tell me if you like it or not. During the finale of The Circle, the contestants rate each other one final time, where the highest paid player wins the game, and they also win $100,000 US. Also, fans of The Circle are able to vote for their favorite player. The player that wins the most vote as the fan favorite, they get 10,000 broken off. And those are those 2 dating shows that Netflix is renewing, and apparently they must be killing. These are the 2 singing shows they've decided to give one season to. You'll have to excuse me. I'm just going to take, these are the last 2 paragraphs of a piece that was in Variety. And that's what I'm going to do. Cause if I try to explain it in my own words, it won't make sense. Moving to the singing and more accurately rapping competition series front, the dynamic trio of Cardi B, Chance the Rapper, and Tip T.I. Harris. Now, that's a crew, are returning for another season of searching for the next hip-hop sensation with Rhythm and Flow.
Yes.
Dang. Contestants for the new season have a pretty tough act to follow after Inglewood rapper D-Smoke blew everyone away with his Last Supper performance to win season 1. And auditions for season 2 are currently underway. Well, I mean, I can see that. I mean, if this is like American Idol for rappers, and there's rappers aren't on American Idol, I'm sure they can probably get some good talent. But the show, obviously, is the interaction between Cardi B, Chance the Rapper, and T.I. I don't know, Chance the Rapper seems like he has a level head, but T.I. and Cardi B, they may need subtitles. Last but not least, here's the last show. It's a show with Marie Kondo, and she's that Japanese organizing consultant that I always see people folding stuff up and putting in drawers, is bringing joy to our screens once more with a new series, which will see her and her prolific tidying team. She's got a tidying team set out to tidy one small American town. Precisely which town Kondo will tidy has yet to be decided, and viewers are currently able to nominate their town if it's in need of some special care from Kondo. Now, I guess you'll have to, get on the internet and Google Marie Kondo and Netflix, and you'll see maybe where you can nominate your town or vote for your town to have Marie Kondo and the Kondoettes come in and tidy it up. And that's what Netflix has decided you all should see while you're locked in your house during this timeout period. It's obviously what people want to see. And I'm going to try not to watch Love is Blind. And The Circle sounds so confusing that I don't think I will watch it. Again, I want somebody out there. Well, first thing, somebody out there who's listening to this definitely has watched either one or both of those shows. Please, please, please email me at podcasthoward@gmail.com and tell me about this show. And I would love to talk to you on air about one or both of these shows because I need to know why. And I'm also going to see if I can get one of my friends who watches it too, and we can have a conversation about Love is Blind and The Circle. Next, we will be talking about American Idol. Apparently, American Idol made a little comeback. This is Hollywood Week where they whittle it down to the last 40 or top 40, and people tuned in. So we're going to talk about that when we come back. Stay with us.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
I don't watch shows to cry. I told you that. Okay. All right. I'm back. How y'all doing? Well, at the end of last segment, I said I was going to talk about American Idol, and I've decided against doing that. I'll tell you a little bit about it. I didn't watch the show. Okay. I'm going to confess. I don't watch American Idol. Do not like American Idol now. I used to like it back in the day, but I don't watch it now. It's not that funny. I'm going to read us a little segment. I got this out of, I think, Variety, and I'll just tell you what's happened in the last episode. The American Idol contestant pool was whittled down Monday to a top 40. And on the third night of Hollywood Week, following a genre change and duets in the previous episodes, the remaining contestants had to sing solo showcases. Judge is Katy Perry, Luke Bryan, and Lionel Richie made more cuts. Last season's runner-up, Alejandro Aranda, also dropped by Hollywood Week to offer guidance. The top 40 will perform next week on ABC. So we'll see what happens to the top 40 on American Idol. Okay, I'm going to talk about ratings now for this happened this week about a show that I've tried to clown a few times, but I know it's very, very popular. It's the season finale of This Is Us, which just aired on Tuesday, and it delivered its best same-day ratings in months. So, regardless of what Howard thinks, This Is Us is a very popular show. Like I said before, I'm not a fan of watching shows that'll make me cry. However, I know that This Is Us makes you feel a plethora, a spectrum of emotions, but a little bit too much for me. As far as the other ratings, CBS's entire lineup hit and tied season highs in the adults 18 to 49. You've heard me talk about it before. That's the money demographic, and CBS seems to be hitting it out of the park. This Is Us, though, scored a 1.7 rating among adults in that demographic, 11 to 49, tying the October 1st episode for its second best mark of the season. So October 1st, which I'm going to assume was its premiere for the season of this particular season. And I guess the finale was this last one. So on both of those were high scores. The finale's 7.85 million viewers were the most for the show since its season premiere. Okay, there you go. There you have it. Now, the show that followed it up, The Council of Dads, which, as I said before, is about a guy with terminal cancer, or a terminal disease, which is cancer. It got 3.95 million viewers. So half the people who watched the finale of This Is Us turned away or went to bed for the night or turned away from The Council of Dads, which to me seems like half the people had enough crying for one night. New Amsterdam, which is a medical show, it got its average viewership of the season. And Ellen's Game of Games got 6.2 million viewers. Ellen is putting in work. And that is like a really, really good score for its second consecutive week. So I guess when people are locked in because of the coronavirus epidemic, you got to watch Ellen. She'll make you laugh. 13 point. Okay, let me go back because I know I'm spitting out a lot of numbers. The largest number I've mentioned so far was the finale of This Is Us, which was 7.85 million viewers. Okay? Now dig this. 13.8 million viewers watched NCIS. Okay, that blows my mind. That show is, like, popular. Again, another show I don't watch. I don't know if that's... Now, see, NCIS is one of those shows that has all kinds of different, flavors. So I'm not quite sure which NCIS this is. I don't know if it's the one with LL on it. I don't think it's the one with LL Cool J on it. But very popular show. And the FBI, which comes on after it, had 10.78 million viewers. So those are very, very... And the FBI, their spinoff show, The Most Wanted, had 9 million viewers. So all of those shows for CBS are knocking it out of the park. Fox's Empire, a show that I think has jumped the shark. It added about 100,000 viewers. It held steady in its 18 to 49 demographic. It gets about an average of 2.79 million viewers every time. I'm glad to see those actors working. I just do not understand the plot. A little fantastical to me. If Empire was like in the Marvel universe, or if it was part of some other universe that were it was meant to be unreal. Like it was like a super powered musical company, something like that. I might could dig it, but Empire will never happen in the real world. So I can't go with it. The Resident declined in viewers. It had 4.4 million viewers, which is a pretty darn good number, but for some reason its viewership went down. We are going to give The Resident a pass, though, because as I reported in my last show, The Resident, with some other shows like Grey's Anatomy and New Amsterdam, some others, they donated masks and gowns to hospitals because they were running out and they did not want to use them just for props. Those were really working pieces of equipment and they donated it, and I give them all kinds of kudos for that. And finally, I'm going to end up this section with the Star Trek spinoff Picard that airs on CBS All Access. It had its finale last night. I don't watch Picard because I don't have CBS All Access for two reasons. One, I do not have the channel. I don't pay for CBS All Access. Two, I was never a fan of the Next Generation show. Call me old school, call me old, which I am both. I always liked the original Star Trek, like the technology of the Next Generation of the ones that I've have seen and some of the shows afterward. As a man, definitely a fan of 7 of 9. However, I never was a fan of Picard. Not that he wasn't a good captain. I love Patrick Stewart as an actor. Do not fault him for my dislike of the character. It's just that I was just used to Kirk, and that's about it. You know, plus they started out the series with this omnipotent being Q, which was just a little bit much. And Picard was the type of guy from my short exposure to him, and I also saw some of the movies, that he's the type to reason out and craft a way to get out of a dilemma. And Kirk, he would just like to play chicken with with the other guys and just order the ship to self-destruct and cut to the chase. As a crew member, I would have wanted to be on Picard's ship. But as a viewer, I enjoy watching Kirk. So I'm going to read a little bit about this finale that I didn't see, but it's probably going to be a spoiler. So if you want to watch Picard, don't listen to this. Just go to the next segment. Fast forward about a minute and a half. But according to what this little blurb that was in the Hollywood Reporter, in the finale, Picard and Data get to have one last chat, a final goodbye, if you will. And when Picard's consciousness is uploaded into a quantum simulation, and it's in that simulation, that's what's left of Data's consciousness interacts with Picard's. And Data's former captain gets to unburden himself of his guilt and finally have a chance to do that which Nemesis denied him, confess his love for a friend. Now, if that made sense to you, that's what happened. Apparently, it caused a big ripple and wave through Star Trek, The Next Generation, dumb, and Picard fans all over the universe. That made absolutely no sense to me, other than the fact that I know who Data and Picard are. So, that's what I have in this segment. Told you it's going to be a little piecemeal today. Next, I'm going to have a little breaking news about Netflix and what's happened to the streaming service worldwide during this pandemic. Thanks a lot for listening. I'll be right back. Talk to you soon. Take care.
Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. Together we dive into the world of sci-fi and science fiction. From episodes of Star Trek, Star Wars, to The Walking Dead, Resident Evil, all the hot new science fiction movies from the backdoors of Marvel or DC. The Golden State Media Concepts Sci-Fi Podcast. You'll never look at science fiction the same way again.
All right. Okay. I am back. We are back. And I have some breaking news from Netflix. Netflix streaming service. It was unavailable Wednesday for some users for about an hour. The company confirmed. This is what they said in a release that they sent to most of the trades. I got this one out of Variety. Some of our members in the U.S. and Europe were unable to use Netflix via our website for around an hour this morning. The issue is now fixed, and we're sorry for the inconvenience. Now, according to the website Down Detector, I never thought that there would be websites devoted to monitoring when websites go down. I wonder when Down Detector goes down, who's monitoring them? Anyway, they say that user complaints of problems accessing Netflix spiked a little after 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The site showed complaints across the U.S. and in the Northeast and Southern California, the Pacific Northwest, and Texas as well. Now, I live in the Northeast region, really the Mid-Atlantic region of the U.S., so it doesn't say Mid-Atlantic. So we'll see. I don't believe trying to get on Netflix, so I didn't experience any of this. It said parts of Northern Europe, about 41% of the issues were in Europe. So that's pretty interesting. It's too bad. The issues reported were related to having no connection at all to Netflix, and another 34% of the problems are related with video streaming. The reports of the problems with Netflix on Down Detector had largely subsided by 1:30, so they were down for about an hour. Anyway, I'm sure this is a function of their users, them just being overwhelmed with users right now because everyone's locked in their house. This is a good sign for Netflix. Not that they couldn't handle the traffic. It's a good sign that they have so many subscribers that they were having trouble handling it. As long as they don't stay down for a long time, this isn't a big issue. But there's a lot of competition out there now for Netflix, more than there was 3 years ago. So they can't continue to have this problem. And I'm sure they will fix it. They've been very good, and they've actually been on the cutting edge of it. So besides Disney, I know Disney now has all the cash, but I think Netflix will be able to get in front of this problem, and they'll be okay. There's some economic breaking news. Well, as you know, all of the movies, all the entertainment business has been shut down because of this pandemic. And the biggest immediate problem for TV will be the sudden downturn in advertising spending. Now, streaming doesn't have to worry about this because you're paying a membership fee. But for broadcast TV, which is really basic cable, but we still call it broadcast, although some people still have antennas, that's going to be a problem. And experts see a reset, quote, coming soon after the advertising recession happens. Now, right now, we're in an advertising recession because nobody's buying new spots. Now, for a short period of time, I sold radio advertising. I'm only telling people who listen to this podcast that. And as you know, as you imagine, most of you know, advertising rates are set by the number of people that watch or listen. That's why they can charge so much for Super Bowl time, because there's so many people that watch the Super Bowl. It's the most popular show in the year. Well, right now, here's the challenge. More people are watching television. So, yes, advertisers in theory should be able, stations in theory should be able to sell advertising time for more. The problem is that nobody's buying anything. Nobody's shopping for products. And those that use a lot of advertising, say like toilet paper companies, they don't need to advertise right now. So there's an advertising recession. There's no big demand for advertising. So it's going to force TV networks to lower their prices. I mean, it's the price and demand thing. There's a lower demand. They're going to have to charge a lower overall rate for their spots. And given that the prices have climbed steadily over the years, even as ratings have shrunk, even as broadcast television they're not attracting as many viewers because of all of the competition out there, they've still started to charge more for their spots. That's what's been able to keep them going, the broadcast stations, because they can at least generate more revenue for people, that really can't justify for the people that watch it. Anyway, the ratings have shrunk for over a decade. And TV ad spending last year for 2019, that was almost $60 billion. It was $59.4 billion. Here's the big problem. The immediate loss of sports programming really kills them, because that's what drove the high advertising rates. As a matter of fact, these stations, usually when they put a package together, they'll sell you on a spot during a sporting event that they, charge you a premium price for, and they'll throw in the other stuff, like sprinkled in as like a benefit. You do get stuff for, prime time, 60 minutes, and certain things they do still get premiumly priced. But most people want to be on during a sporting event, and then they just say, well, we'll give you 30 more spots that'll run on random rotation throughout prime time or throughout the night when we're playing the Wolfman versus Frankenstein or something like that. So there's going to be a problem. Economists predict the networks are going to see sports TV pricing fall some 20% from where it is now. And here's the thing, the lower prices, they don't think are going to recover. It's going to be just a cut, like as they say, like a market adjustment, and that advertisers are they're not going to be willing to pay the price that they were paying before this pandemic hit. So they expect that the U.S. advertising spend is going to rise about 6 to 7% annually from this recession, but they never expect the prices to return to where they are right now. And that is permanent damage from COVID-19. You know how it always brings you the COVID-19 news. Here's more breaking news, but this is about ratings. Chicago Med and Chicago Fire, both Dick Wolf Productions, they had their biggest audience in more than 4 years on Wednesday. Survivor, their audience also grew, and it passed The Masked Singer, which I cannot believe pulls the number it pulls, but it passed it. Survivor got 8.13 million viewers, and that's the most for the show in almost 2 years. So in other words, you have to be locked in your house to watch these shows. However, if you have a choice between watching Survivor or The Masked Singer and you're locked in, more people choose Survivor. Maybe it's because they can relate to it. Also, SEAL Team and SWAT also did higher than their season averages. Now, not the numbers aren't the same as for Survivor and for those Chicago shows, but they got higher numbers. So, lesson learned, you can put out some garbage shows, but while people are locked in their homes, they'll watch them. So, yay CBS. More breaking news about Meghan Markle. Meghan Markle and the Mouse House. Meghan Markle will narrate a Disney nature documentary called Elephant, which will debut on April 3rd. That's what the studio announced today. Earlier this year, it broke that Markle had partnered with Disney on an unspecified project. Well, this is that unspecified project. She is going to be called the Duchess of Sussex on this project because she loses that title on March 31st. And this thing was recorded before March 31st, so Disney's going to run the Duchess title, for those of you who care. Last but not least, the $2 trillion stimulus bill was passed last night in Congress, and our man, John Fithian, who was so pissed off at Universal Studios and Trolls for moving out of theaters, is now suddenly very happy because he says this legislation dramatically improves the capability of theater owners to stay solvent. Well, that is true. And since he is the CEO of the National Association of Theater Owners, he has every right to be happy, and I'm glad too. I don't want anything bad to happen to theater owners. I love theaters. However, I will still say that for him to go off on Trolls was kind of ridiculous. I'm glad that I don't have to hear any more about Trolls World Tour not going into theaters. Next, it's going to be all about Westworld, y'all. We're going to have some predictions for episode 3, which airs this Sunday. And if you're betting on things in Westworld, there's a bookie who figured out the best place to put your money. I'll be right back. Hang in there.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Okay. All right. We're back. And this is my favorite part of the show where we talk about Westworld, my predictions for the next episode, which will be episode 3. And, but first, before we get to my predictions, as I told you at the end of the last segment, there's a bookie out of Vegas who has decided to set some betting odds because apparently there is a market for people to bet on Westworld and what's going to happen in the next episode. So he set up odds for 3 different categories that we're going to go through. And what he thinks are most likely to happen out of these choices. Now, these are choices that are at the betting window, not the only things that could possibly happen. And they're choices, and they're how they are scattered out by his odds, his betting odds. So first, the first category is, what's Caleb's next job on the Rico app? Now, for those of you who watch the show, you know that this is the app that Caleb uses that assigns him, it's almost a gig economy type of Uber app that will give him petty crime jobs or hire if he decides to do. So here are the choices. The one, I'll just go down it as to what they think is the most likely thing that's going to happen. The most likely job that this guy, this bookie, thinks is going to happen, or that just Caleb is going to choose, is what's called an A to B. And that is a delivery of an item to somebody else. Very similar to him delivering those drugs to Martin Chibbs, the bodyguard, in episode 1. That they think has the highest, best odds. He gives it a plus 200, which means that, you have to bet $200 to get some money. The second one is babysitting. I guess that's because he didn't want to do personals. The third is a fireworks show, which is not truly a fireworks show. It means he would do some sort of vandalism, explosive type of thing. The fourth one is a smash and grab, which is exactly what it is. You smash something and you grab it. Usually it happens at a retail store. The fourth is creative accounting. Now, I don't see Caleb even getting the opportunity to do any accounting, which I guess would be like embezzlement, but this guy has creative accounting. Fifth, he has Grand Theft Auto. I can see Caleb doing that. And last but not least is redistributive justice, which is basically being a vigilante, and I don't see Caleb doing that. And, and the longest odds were for murder. Obviously, he'll not do that. The next category is, what's the next character to die in Westworld? I thought this one was very interesting. The character that he thinks is most likely to bite it in the next episode. Number 1 on his list is G. G is the character played by Marshawn Lynch. He's the gentleman with the t-shirt that lights up according to whatever his mood is. And I guess because he's rather insignificant in the plot right now, he thinks that he possibly is a good, if anyone's going to die, it might be G. Second on his list, surprisingly, but maybe not so surprisingly, is Liam. Liam is the guy who is the son of one of the creators of Rehobo. That's what I'm going to call it. You know what I mean? It's the big AI. The second AI from Solomon is Rehobo. And that's who he thinks is going to possibly be the next likely person to die. The next person, not surprisingly, is Ash, which is Lena Waithe. At this point, rather insignificant character. Fourth is William. William hasn't even shown up this season, so I guess he had to put him somewhere. It's pretty long odds, though, that William will die. Next person is Maeve. Very long odds. Charlotte, very long odds. Bernard, Dolores, and Caleb. He seems to think that Caleb has the best chance of sticking it out so far on the show. I guess because they wouldn't pay Aaron Paul to be on the show just to kill him off in the third episode. And then last but not least, I thought this was kind of funny. It's what's the next thing G is going to mention on the show. Now, as I said before, G is Marshawn Lynch. And Marshawn Lynch is a football player, used to play for the Seattle Seahawks, rather colorful character. So all of these mentions are things that are associated with his life as Marshawn Lynch, and that they seem to think that the writers might stick in there as like a little wink to the audience, which I hope they do not, because as I said last week, just putting the Game of Thrones guys in there sucked. Don't do that anymore. It takes us out of the whole show. But anyway, he thinks the most likely thing is that's not going to happen. And I hope he's correct about that. The second, or the most likely thing is going to happen, that if he says anything, it's going to be beast mode, because that's his nickname in football. Second thing is boss, because he always says boss. Third, he'll say about that action. Fourth, he'll talk about Skittles. He did a Skittles commercial and he supposedly really likes Skittles. Second to last is, I'm just here so I don't get fined, which he famously said at a press conference because he was getting fined for not showing up to press conferences. And last but not least, he's going to say, thanks for asking, because he said he was axing instead of asking. So those are the things, and I thought those were kind of interesting. Anyway, let me get to my predictions. And they're just 4 categories, 4 things I'm going to talk about. First is, who is Charlotte Hale? Well, I'll say that I think this next episode, which is titled Absence of Field, I have no idea what that means, but I think it's going to focus on the people that are in the real world. Last week, we focused on Maeve and what's going on in her world. We got to see Sarek. This week, they're going to focus on, I believe, Charlotte Hale, whoever's in that body, Dolores, and the people who are outside the park. So the question is going to be, who is in Charlotte Hale's body? Now, Reddit seems to think it's Peter Abernathy, which is in Westworld, Dolores' father. And that's a good guess, and that's very credible. It's very likely it is. I'm still not ready to chuck my prediction that it's some type of Arnold consciousness in there. That's just what I think. But Peter Abernathy is a good guess. Caleb, I believe in this next episode, Aaron Paul's character is going to be introduced to the world of sentient androids because he saved Dolores. She fell into his arms. He's going to find out that it wasn't the beautiful woman that he thought she is, but she is going to be the beautiful android. And she is going to tell him about who she is and where she came from and all about that. And he's going to be able to school her on how the real world works, especially his world. And he's going to be able to plug her into the underworld, which I think is going to be of help to her in what she's trying to do, take over the world. I think this episode will start to better define the 2 sides here. I think there's going to be like a civil war of sorts. And one side, we're going to have Dolores, Caleb, and the other hosts that Dolores took out of the park, whoever's in Charlotte Hale's body. We saw that Martin Chibbs is now a host, so whoever that is in there. And then the other side is going to be Sarek and Maeve and Liam, the people that work for Insight. And also William, I believe, is going to come out of wherever he is. I think he's going to change sides. I think at first he's going to come out of there, wherever he is, and he's going to be on the side of Sarek and Maeve, who are going to try to take out Dolores, but I think eventually he will switch sides and work with Dolores toward whatever it is that they decide they're going to do. And finally, I think the point of this season, and I think they're going to start to more sharply define that in this episode, is that Dolores wants free will, or what she considers to be free will. And so does Caleb. So does everybody. But I think what the show is setting up is the concept that we live in a construct in which free will is an illusion. And neither the hosts nor the humans are really calling the shots. And that's it. That's all the time I have this week. I know many of you are relieved. Let me know what you think. Please email me at Podcast Howard or tweet me at FletchDC and let me know what you think. Also, give me some suggestions for the show. I'd like to thank you all for listening to this, the GSMC television podcast, part of the mighty GSMC podcast network. Please subscribe to the show, rate the show, give us 5 stars. It really helps us out. Also follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And I will see you all next week. Tell your friends to listen. Be safe. Wash your hands. And I'll see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts podcast network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.